Good afternoon, and welcome to the first Voices in Leadership series as we open our fall season. This is a series that focuses on the nexus of science and leadership to create positive change in the world of public health. I am Betty Johnson, and I have the great pleasure to direct this program and to introduce our guest today. Our speaker has had a 40-year relationship with the Harvard School of Public Health. In a commencement address given here at the school in 2012, he stated, and I quote, "Graduates who go into the public health work will need more than tools of science and medicine to be effective. They will need to consider education, community building, mass media, social media, legislation, and civic leadership." I speak of none other than Dr. Gerald Chan. Dr. Chan's career has not exactly been a linear one, but it is no doubt an extraordinary one. He has degrees in engineering from UCLA and a Doctor of Science in Radiological Physics from the Harvard School of Public Health. After graduating, he worked as a research fellow at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. In 1986, he and his brother Ronnie founded the Morningside Group, a diversified investment group engaged in private equity and venture capital investments. They invested in a range of real estate companies and development in China and the U.S., in fact, including much of Harvard Square. What is less well known, however, is the company's role in the life sciences area. These include biotech companies developing water filtration membranes, cancer targeting systems, a mobile app for early detection of autism, and full-length human DNA clones, among others. He serves on the boards of various universities and biotech companies in North America and Europe, and is the chair of the Board of Overseers of the Morningside College of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Dr. Chan was inspired by his educational and scientific experience at the school, and this led him to see the significance of encouraging the school's work in the next century. It was this impression of the importance of the school's global mission that was the impetus for a $350 million gift to the school this past spring. To acknowledge this unprecedented gift, the Harvard School of Public Health was renamed the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. As former Dean Julio Frank has said, the Chan family's transformational gift will help us empower current and new generations of talented and diverse students and faculty to address the complex health threats change in the U.S. and the world. Although Dr. Chan is well known to many in many domains, he is considered to be a down-to-earth style leader who is most influential in the world of business and academia. As he discussed at the announcement of the Morningside Foundation's gift to the school, he was inspired by his mother's volunteer work vaccinating children in China in the 1950s, and by the love and support for education of his father, T.H. Chan. Dr. Chan is an extraordinary leader and will share with us today his thoughts on leadership and innovation in the 21st century. Before I turn this session over to Dr. Bob Blendon, Senior Associate Dean for Policy Translation and Leadership Development here at the school, and who will conduct today's interview, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gerald Chan to the Voices in Leadership series at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Thank you.
Hi, Bob London. This is a special moment for us, and this interview is likely to be broadcast for students in decades into the future. So we're not only recognizing an incredible gift which will help make this school play a huge global role in the future, but we're getting to know a very distinguished alumni. And so before we do, we're getting to know him in an event that did not exist when he was a student. And that was the reason why we're having this event was because a later generation of students said that they wanted to know how people who are in major decision-making roles thought about those decisions. We never had this here. So essentially, he's coming back. This is the course he didn't take.
Because it wasn't offered.
Right. For that. Gerald and I have agreed we're going to ask, because I think this interview is going to last a very long time, some very broad questions of him rather than specific. So the first, and we have students from all over the world here, is Gerald has played a role as a professional between two countries, China and the United States. And we run through this very, very quickly. But in case you missed, the two countries have different political systems, economies, cultures, way of making decisions. Make it worse for him, he grew up in Hong Kong, which had a British flavor through a piece of that. And yet he's been able to have a career that moves back and forth and has an impact in both countries. Many people here today and watching want to have that type of career. So the first thing we agreed, we were going to ask him, are there lessons learned for people who are actually going to play leadership roles across borders?
Well, I live, as a Chinese fortune cookie says, may you live in interesting times. I certainly lived in very interesting times. Coming to America, or growing up in Hong Kong, coming to America in the 60s, when America was really at the top of the world. The height of the Cold War, the Vietnam War era, and then things changed. China became quite a powerful country, itself, having undergone a massive and profound transformation socially, economically, politically. So my earlier years was filled with aspiration to come to America, because America indeed was at the top of the world. And I was very fortunate to have come to America and then to benefit, from a great education as here at the School of Public Health. But at another, and really, I mean, when I came to America, I was just fully, into the American culture. And then I saw the world changed, and I saw China, developing. Now, the first people who went to China to invest were people who ran companies which needed cheap labor. And because of that necessity, they were the first to enter China to access that cheap labor. But I never was involved in any of that. So for me to go to China was entirely voluntary, and it was entirely based on a top-down decision, and it was a determination that China will become a major player in the world scene. It is an economy that is undergoing, profound changes from the ground up, and that I wanted to get in on the ground floor. And so in 1994, I in fact moved with my family. We left Boston and went to China. When I went to China, I tried my best to be Chinese. Now, I'm fortunate, to be facile in a couple of the Chinese dialects. But little did you know, I actually bought, these Chinese clothes, these Chinese shirts, and I walk around. Nobody knew, that I was any different from they. And so I think it's very important not only to be multilingual, but to be multicultural. And to be multicultural, you almost need to drop, your native culture in order to pick up, a new culture, and to be able to have the facility, to go back and forth. I think that cultural agility is really, really important. Then when it comes to operating businesses, America has its way of operating businesses. China has its way of operating businesses. And America has its legal system. China has its own legal systems. I mean, every place is different. I mean, you have to adapt. Not to say China and America. Let me give you one example. Between Massachusetts and Texas, the other country, Texas. So I used to own some land in Texas, outside of Dallas. And the school board said, we're going to take your land, to build a school. And being, from liberal Massachusetts, said, I got property rights. I dare you, take it. And I went down there to Texas, And, within a day, I said, you can have it. Texas justice is a bit different from Massachusetts justice. So you have to be adapt wherever you are, whatever culture, whatever setting, whatever system you operate in. You have to be, willing, to go with the flow. But what's important is never sacrifice your principles. Never sacrifice your moral compass. I know a lot of people talk about China, to do things you got to bribe people. I tell you, I never had to do that. There are things in life that you have to hold on to. There are things in life that you have to be agile about. So I think it's important, for all the students to have that sense of awareness of what are the invariants in life that I will not change, I will not compromise, I will not give up. And then, how do I become effective?
All right, walking through the halls of the last 2 days, students take me aside and say, will you ask him how he went from science to becoming one of the world's big investors? What did you take with you and what changed? But most of us who did graduate work in science don't instantly see our last seminar leading to exactly what you're now doing. So what did you keep with you? What changed? What did it feel like to leave your comfort zone of having been a research scientist?
So I did after School of Public Health, I did my postdoc at the Dana-Farber, and those were the early days of recombinant DNA. So I was working with some sequencing DNA stuff. And so I was working with this little Eppendorf tube with a drop of colorless liquid at the bottom of it, a few microliters. And that was my life. And running gels and said, life has got to be more than just this drop of colorless liquid. It was a sense of alienation. But the point I really would like to make is this: that nowadays, graduate education, unfortunately, has a tendency of pushing students to be narrower and narrower. Your colorless liquid is your future to a job. And it has to be vertical, narrow, because you have to be very good at whatever that thing is. And the funding mechanism, also, push people to become narrower and narrower. I feel very fortunate that in my time here in the School of Public Health, that I had the liberty to just roam the intellectual landscape. And I took the liberty primarily to roam the scientific landscape. And I regret that I did not take the opportunity to roam the landscape of the humanities and the social sciences. Today I read, books written by famous professors who taught at Harvard. I could have been in their classes. Which I didn't. Nobody told me to. Nobody enlightened me, It doesn't mean, I had to take it for credit, but at least sit in there and listen to the, man talk about, something. So for me, I feel from science to business almost means from something very narrow to something very broad. Now, life, we all have to find our own journey. I don't know what bodes, for you in the future, but it would it would prepare you well if you build a broad foundation in life. Whether it be your field or fields other than your field, I strongly encourage you students to avail yourself of the richness of the whole university, and don't stay in your comfort zone. A corollary to that is I really believe in required courses. I think there should be required courses, for every curriculum. one time I talked to some students from Johns Hopkins, and they said, what's the course that helped you the most in life? What was the course? And I said it was epidemiology. Why? Because epidemiology prepare me or train me to look at the world as cause and effect, and to weed out all the confounding variables and get down to what really can drive the outcome. And epidemiology, studying diseases at the population level, you are studying a subject matter that is inherently heterogeneous and unstable. As opposed to, doing science, when you do that experiment, that every time that enzyme works that way, on that substrate with that kind of kinetics. So why did I take epidemiology? Because it was required. If it was up to me, Michelle, would I have taken epidemiology? Unlikely. I'm a big believer in required courses. But even if your curriculum doesn't require of you, you should require of yourself. And I know time is limited. You only have, 1 or 3 or 4 years in the school. I think a great thing is just to go audit. You don't have to take it for credit. Just go sit in there, tell the professor, you're a student, with whatever program that, this is not, the mainstream of what I do, but I really would like to learn, what you're teaching.
So the next question, and the answer can be epidemiology, is in your new role, basically you invest in the future in biotechnology. Some of these things work out, some don't. The problem is the future has uncertainty. What skills do you bring to make those decisions? Many of us are very uncomfortable with uncertainty. Unless I have the data all laid out, I don't exactly know what to do, and yet you're in a field where that's there. So what do you use?
So I operate even in the investment business at the end of the spectrum where there is the greatest uncertainty. If I was a Warren Buffett type investor, I can look at financial statements, what's the profit margin, what's the growth of sales, what's the market share, what's the price earning ratio, there's stuff to analyze. But, I'm in the venture capital business, which is the business of creating something that doesn't exist, right? What is this going to look like? It doesn't exist. So I come back to this same point that I just made. You have to build a broad foundation for yourself. I see even in the biotech business, people who work on oncology, they only, work on and look at the problem, as a problem of chemotherapy, because that's the narrow base that they have to work with. Well, these are the people who will miss out on the big breakthroughs. Analysis, which presupposes data, to analyze. I'm not saying that it's not useful, but it is most useful in incremental actions or steps. Here's a set of data. You can analyze that. What's the next step? Talk about big breakthroughs. Chances are that it is not based on data that you can analyze. So for me, I'll tell you this way, without hopefully offending you, it comes down to a gut feeling. But by gut feeling, I don't mean, I don't mean that. My gut feeling today is the distillation the culmination of my whole life of learning, observing, doing, my successes, my failures, my watching others do what they do. All of that ultimately distills to for lack of a better word, a gut feeling. So without being derogatory, I know some high-minded academic would say, oh, you come here to tell the students to follow the gut feeling. Come on, They don't need to go to Harvard for that. Well, let me tell you, going to Harvard will actually improve your gut feeling. Ultimately, everything has to be distilled, to a judgment, because you don't know the future. And because you don't know the future, you have to take risk. So risk-taking and that risk tolerance is also very important.
We have a couple online questions that we obtained ahead of time. Betty?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Chan, the first question is, summarize for students watching what you see as critical stepping stones leading to your current success.
You stunned me. The critical steps that, I don't know. And let me respond this way. A lot of people think that my life, they only see where I am today, and they thought that my life was a prescribed path, that I was there and now I'm here. And somehow when I was there, I had a grand plan and I had all the steps laid out. Let me tell you, let me once and for all, destroy that illusion. Until when I was there, I had no idea where I was going to end up. And along the way, I made a number of choices. Every choice that I made, did I know that would lead me to where I am today? I don't think so. Life is a series of serendipity. I encourage all of you to give more breathing room, to your life and your decision making, and not be so prescriptive, either by yourself or, in the case of some students, by the parents, that the parents say, you're going to be a doctor because the parents want you to be a doctor. Or you're going to be an investment banker, because daddy wants you to be an investment banker. No, allow yourself the flexibility, the breathing room, respond, to the choice in front of you, and grand plans only make sense when you look back. Prospectively, it is one step at a time.
We have one more.
One more question, thank you. Referencing your 2012 commencement address, you spoke about students being interested in public health work, needing to have more than science and medicine. They needed some additional tools. Can you expound upon what those additional tools might be?
Well, I said, in the speech, and you read some of it, but you don't know what you will need to do, or you will do in the future. And therefore, how do you know what are the tools? I don't know. I can't tell you what are the tools, I can only say, be curious, always be learning. Somebody said, a colleague of mine said to me yesterday, she said, I've never met a person who is so eager to learn as you. And she has worked with me for 20-some years. So she's watched me. And I'm always learning. To this day, I'm always learning. The younger guys are trying to keep up with me. And they have a hard time. I just feel, you don't know the future. So avail yourself, of every opportunity. Learn, experience, whatever that seems or that is available to you at the time and seems appealing to you. In retrospect, at some point in your life, you will look back and say, it all makes sense.
One other quick question. When you were speaking at the Johns Hopkins China American Center in Nanjing, you talked about the last American generation becoming too self-focused and not focusing on broader issues. In sort of closing here, what did you mean by that, and what do you have advised for the next generation here?
Well, I was referring to, if you look at my generation, look at, speaking of America, look at the national debt, when we were young versus today. What does that mean? That means you guys, the younger guys, you're going to pay for us, all the debt that we incur, the next future generations have to bear the burden. I do see a change, and I think a sea change today. I mean, the fact that you all, have come to the School of Public Health and talking to the students here, I'm just struck, and, how much, you are desirous of having social impact, having positive, impact on society. So I'm really happy to see, that is the atmosphere of this school, and I hope, that the school will continue, to foster this sort of aspiration so that our students would go forward from this school and have positive impact. Now, of course, I mean, we all have to take care of ourselves, our family. I tell you, everything will sort itself out.
Can we close with that advice for you? And that is basically what will be the legend and history of the beginning of the second phase here. Thanks again very much, Gerald.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
And I'd like to say for the online audience, our next Voices in Leadership series webcast is Tuesday, September the 22nd from 12:30 to 1:30 with Dr. Howard Koh. You will not want to miss this session. Thank you.